So I stumbled upon this article because I don't want to talk about any of the top stories like usual because they're all just completely dumb. I'm surprised the New York Post actually posted something that actually made sense. It was amazing. Usually their articles are like complete fucking bullshit, but this one actually made sense. Wow, good job, Jacob Solom. You actually like posted something that's like legit. How ecstasy is helping vets handle PTSD. Okay, so again, this is going to be a short video. I'm not going to go into this entirely because I don't need to. I don't need to read to you guys. You guys can read for yourselves. But basically, this drug that we were taught in school that it's horrible and that it can kill you and that drugs are bad and you shouldn't take them at all. Now this drug apparently is helping vets handle PTSD, and there's a couple of studies that show this. They're randomly assigned these are small doses, by the way. It's not like they were just overloading them with this and like, oh yeah, it works. It's a very small amount. And the sessions were separated about a month. And blah 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 goes into it. It helps with PTSD. It helps with all of the negative consequences of PTSD, like the different symptoms of it. So on the scale, so after they were given these milligrams, they scored the PTSD scale, and it fell by 58 points in the medium dose group and 43 points in the high dose group, compared with 11 points in the low dose group. The low, medium, high being these three categories right here. 68% of the medium and high dose subjects no longer met the diagnostic criteria for post-traumatic stress disorder, compared with just 29% of the low dose subjects. Substantial persistent improvements reinforce the results of earlier MAP-sponsored studies that provided MDMA assisted psychotherapy to crime victims. The next step is phase 3 clinical trials, which is the last step before the FDA decides whether to approve MDMA as a treatment for PTSD. Okay, so that's a bunch of like quote unquote high tech talk. Like it's not how people talk day to day. What does it actually mean? So it's just like marijuana back in the 60s and 70s, how people decried that as degeneracy, like drugs are bad, you smoking or like blow your brains out on drugs, whatever, they're bad, whatever. And yet now, 30, 40 years later, we see all these positive effects that marijuana has. Like medical marijuana is in dozens of states across the country. 10, 15 years ago, not even fucking possible. That would have been a pipe dream. And now all these people slowly are getting the idea that when used responsibly in these specific ways, like I said before, they can just like overdose these motherfuckers with MDMA, or they're going to blow their brains out and trip balls for hours and hours. It doesn't help with PTSD. But to receive this small amount in a timely fashion, they saw that PTSD was reduced. Like marijuana has been proven to reduce anxiety, reduce depression, reduce the symptoms of PTSD. All of these medical benefits, which is why medical marijuana is popping up in states. It's becoming legal in states all across the country, and recreational marijuana is in a couple of states. So just like when people are slowly realizing that drugs are not are bad with marijuana, they're slowly doing the same thing with MDMA. Now it will be a very, very long time before recreational MDMA is in any state. I'll see it in my lifetime. I think I'll see it in my lifetime, but it will take a while because of people's cultural biases towards drugs. They were brought up being taught that drugs are bad and you're going to hell if you're taking drugs, and drugs are just going to blow your brains out. That's what they're taught. So when they become adults, they still think the same thing. Most adults will not look at this study with an objective lens and say, hey, this is helping veterans with PTSD. Maybe we should look into this more. Maybe this is a thing we should do. Maybe what my parents taught me was wrong, and let's use rational and logic to try to figure this out, try to solve this huge problem in our country. And I'm going to go into this huge problem with PTSD and veterans in our country. But that lots of adults can't do that. They can't unlearn what they were taught as kids, and they can't look at this stuff because, like, if I show this link, this article, and this study to someone who has been heavily induated that drugs are bad and that you shouldn't do any drugs or whatever, they'll say, "Oh yeah, well that's interesting. I'm glad that it helped these guys." But I still don't think that we should legalize it. I still don't think we should use it for therapy. Why? Because it's bad. Like that's what they would say. Like they have no logical reason to deny it. It's just they just feel uncomfortable saying, "Oh yeah, we should use MDMA for therapy for PTSD," because it's not what they were taught as kids. So going back to my earlier points, we're already seeing this shift with marijuana just in my lifetime, that it's becoming more acceptable to use, not even for medical purpose, just to have a smoke at the end of the week, a stressful week, whatever. It just reduces anxiety, reduces stress, helps you deal with symptoms of mental illness better. We're seeing this already with marijuana, and I was slowly seeing this with MDMA. It's taking a while more for this drug because it's seen as the quote-unquote harder drug. I mean, it is a harder drug. You can't overdose on it. It's not like marijuana where you can't overdose on marijuana and marijuana deaths is literally zero. You have to use this responsibly. But that's just like with any other of the dozens, if not hundreds of medications that millions of Americans use for mental illness already. People think because the government labeled these drugs are legal and these drugs are not illegal. Sorry, I'm going to try it again. They think that the government's... They trust the government's judgment, for one, which is the most stupidest fucking thing you can possibly do. Trust the government's judgment on what drugs are bad for you and what aren't. That's the first problem, is trusting government. We have seen how well that works in history. So they think, oh, drugs like Zoloft is okay because the government says it's okay. You're legally allowed to get it. You go to a psychiatrist and they prescribe it to you for depression. That's okay to do. But MDMA, no, that's bad. That's illegal. That's what the bad kids use. That's what they take in concerts and raves and stuff. So that's bad. That can't possibly have any good uses. But we're slowly seeing this shift. As these studies come out, people slowly begin to realize, hey, it's not how we thought it was. Now, why am I saying all this? What's the big fucking deal about all this? Well, somewhere between 11% and 20% of veterans of Iraq and Afghanistan wars meet the criteria for PTSD. The VA says that nearly 1 million veterans are receiving compensation for disabilities that are at least partially caused by PTSD. On average, about 20 veterans kill themselves every day. This is a stat that a lot of people don't know about. If they know about it, they don't really put it in perspective because you don't see it in the headlines. You don't see it in everyday life. We have lost exponentially more soldiers and veterans to suicide than all of the recent wars since, like, post-Vietnam. The soldiers we have lost in combat is dwarfed by the amount of soldiers who kill themselves because of PTSD, because they can't handle it. This is a huge problem that no one wants to talk about because it has to involve talking about uncomfortable things, quote-unquote uncomfortable things, that most Americans find uncomfortable. I don't give a shit about because I take my emotion out of it and just look at these fucking studies. The reason why they don't want to talk about this is because it involves uncomfortable conversations about, well, maybe we should legalize drugs that we were taught as kids that were evil and could kill you and should never be used under any circumstances. That's why people don't want to talk about this. Talk about actual solutions for veterans of PTSD. This is the way. I already did a video that I'll put in the description about how Portugal's approach to the quote-unquote war on drugs is much better than our approach. And the Too Long Didn't Read version of it is that they don't treat it as a war on drugs. They legalized every single drug you can think of, and they allowed people to make decisions as adults about what they put into their body. And they saw that overdoses plummeted because of that. So yes, while it's possible for someone to overdose on MDMA, that's their own decision. We can't nanny other adults' personal life decisions about what they do. And I know lots of Americans don't agree with that statement. They think the government knows best and the government makes rules, we should follow them because they're the rule makers. Well, that's not how I see things as a libertarian. You should be able to use whatever drug you want in any amount because you're an adult. If you want to blow your brains out on cocaine, then go the fuck ahead. I do not want my taxes to going towards a policeman to break down your door and shoot you saying, this is for your own good, don't fucking use that drug. You know? That's so fucking stupid. And these people who support the government's decision in all this, they're not the ones that police are breaking down the door and shooting them in the fucking face. No, these are wealthy, middle or upper class Americans who don't see the horrible, devastating effects on the war on drugs. That's the crux of the issue. If their communities are being ravaged by the war on drugs the way other communities are, well, they'd be like, why the fuck you fucking do this? Why don't you just legalize shit and just leave us the fuck alone? But they don't deal with that. And they can't put themselves in other people's shoes. So the conclusion to all this is that yes, we should, of course, do more studies to see if this is correct, because this is just one study. This is relatively new. To make sure that it's correct. And then if it's showed to be correct, then why can't we have medical MDMA just like we have medical marijuana? Or why can't, if people who are just stressed out, or people who have PTSD who aren't in the military and want to use this, they can still use it? Now, another interesting fact that I learned about last year that I thought was really, really interesting is that MDMA was legal in this country up until 1985. There was absolutely, you could just go to anyone who was dealing drugs who had access to it and buy it, and no one gave a fuck. Then, so that begs the question: what happened in 1985 that suddenly made this drug that was completely illegal? That made this drug completely legal. Suddenly, it was so horrible that it was made completely illegal. What a coincidence, in 1985 when Ronald Reagan wasn't president and his dumb, fat, stupid bitch of a wife was pushing her stupid fucking no drugs policy. Oh, the ban took effect 1 month later on July 1st, 1985 in the midst of Nancy Reagan's Just Say No campaign. What a fucking coincidence. I'm sure that's just a coincidence and it didn't have anything to do with Ronald Reagan increasing big government and bearing down in people's lives, saying that we know what's best from you, so we're going to make this drug that was completely legal, completely no criminal act with buying it or using it at all. Suddenly we're going to make it completely illegal, and we're going to send police officers, shoot you in the fucking face if you don't use this drug, because drugs will ruin your life. That's why I'm sending this police officer shoot you in the fucking head. Now, people are going to cry heresy and say, did you just say that Ronald Reagan was increasing big government and control of people's lives? Fuck yeah, I'm going to say that. Because I fucking look at the data. I fucking look at how much government was spending each year of his fucking presidency, and it went up the fucking roof every single year. But you like his little speech that said he liked little government. He didn't like big government, whatever. You listen to that speech, you're like, oh, Ronald Reagan liked little government. You dumbass. You never even looked at the graphs to show the government spending during his presidency, where he made massive tax cuts during his first term, and that like didn't really fucking work, and then there's a huge deficit in the government. He's like, oh wow, it didn't really fucking work, so they increased taxes the second term. Yeah, the Republicans don't want you to know about that. You can look it all up on Google. It takes like 2 fucking seconds. But most Republicans are too fat and stupid to fucking figure that out. Sorry, I got on a tangent on Ronald Reagan here, but isn't that amazing? It's something in 1984 you could buy as easily as cigarettes, and then suddenly on July 1st, it's completely illegal to produce, sell, buy, just nothing. Wow, what was happening? Ronald Reagan, that's what was happening. So that's it. That's the whole conclusion. We should legalize all drugs. We should use this for PTSD. This and other drugs can be used to help depression, anxiety, panic attacks, all symptoms of PTSD, or even depression, anxiety that isn't related to PTSD. But that requires people unlearning what they learned as children. That is very, very hard, which is why it's taking a very long time. But this is a positive step. And the fact that this article and study was published in a relatively mainstream news publication, that's a step. It's a slow step. Yes, all these tiny little steps take so long because people are so stubborn and dumb. But, I mean, I'll take a small victory where we can. Because, like, I don't want to, like, moral fag here, but, like, I actually care about the 20 veterans that are killing themselves every single day. Let's just do the math here. That is 7,300 soldiers and veterans killing themselves every single year. I think that's more than what we lost in Afghanistan since 2001. Nope, that's it. We've only lost 2,271 soldiers in Afghanistan since 2001. We lose 7,300 soldiers and veterans every single year. In 1 year, we lose more than 17 years of war in Afghanistan. That is to put these numbers in perspective to show you why this is important.